Have you ever been in a giant hurry to make parts? Are you struggling to get your things looking great in Dorico? Well, this video's for you. Hey everybody, welcome back to another Dorico video, and in this video I'm going to be taking you through a kind of panicked version of page and part formatting here in Dorico. Let's face it, we've all had that thing where there's a gig on Friday and we have to have a chart with parts out right now. So what we're going to be doing in this video is quickly creating parts from a score so that we can get them out to players and make them as readable as possible with as few steps as possible. Now, this isn't quite what you would be doing if you were trying to publish a piece, but this is for all of us who really need to get it done and get it done quickly. So to begin with, a friend of mine called me up and said she's going to be traveling to Italy and needed some big band parts. So I pulled up an old arrangement I had, and I'm going to update it for her here in Dorico Pro. So I have this arrangement here of Why Don't You Do Right in Finale, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to export it into XML, bring it into Dorico, and then we're going to really quickly make some really usable parts. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open it here in Finale, and you'll see the score, and I'm just going to go File, and I'm going to export to Music XML. And you can see here I've got a spot to save it. I'm going to go ahead and save that, replace, and here we go. All right, now that it has opened in Dorico, you can see that I have the basics of the score in here. I have parts, I have notes, dynamics, chord symbols, and for the most part, it's readable. And again, this is not me trying to show you how to do the publisher version. This is the quick version. This will probably work for our score because it looks pretty good, it's fairly readable, and nothing is too terribly squished. But if we look at the parts, we can see everything is sort of all over the place, and we have really bad page flow, and we really need to get this out in a hurry. So what we're going to do here is we're going to focus mostly on this page formatting thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over into the engrave mode, and I'm going to set a few defaults here for myself. The first thing I'm going to do is under my view, I'm going to get rid of my signposts because I don't want to see all those chords and everything, and I'm just going to look at the part as a whole. Now, if I zoom out a little bit, you can see that it's fairly legible, but I have this wasted second page because I have these two lines on there. And as I scroll through the parts, you can see everything looks a little bit amateurish, and there's just a lot of kind of messy junk here with orphan lines, and you really wonder, I have to print a whole second page for 4 measures of music. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start by setting some defaults for myself. So going back to the lead alto part here, I'm going to go under Library to my Layout options, and then I'm going to set some defaults. Now the first thing I'm going to do here is, because I'm trying to do this for everything at once, I'm going to highlight the alto sax part, hold down Shift, and go down and highlight all of my parts. And this way I'm able to actually make changes to all of them at the same time. There's also a hotkey down here, so if you hit this little one that looks like a music stand, it'll automatically select all your parts for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I have the page orientation I want, which is letter, and then I'm going to choose the size I want. And because everything is kind of pushing onto a second page sort of uniformly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lower my raster size just a little bit to make a little more room on the page. So I'm going to change that to 0.6 instead of being 0.064, which was that default size for. And then when I hit apply, you can see it got almost all of alto sax onto page 1 if I move this out of the way here. So that was kind of a nice additive. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my vertical spacing, and I'm going to look at my interspacing gap. Right now it's set to 8, which is kind of a good medium point. It looks okay, but I might want to make it bigger or smaller depending. I'm going to go ahead and try 7.5 and see if I can get the last line of that alto part onto this page. So by flicking my setting over to 6, you can see I was able to get everything onto one page, and it's still fairly legible. I don't have any collisions, but it is a little bit cramped. So what I might choose to do is go ahead and lower the raster size just a little bit more, because I'm really trying to get everything onto one page. And because I have everything selected over there on the right, this is actually applying to all my parts at once. So if I go down to alto 2, you'll see it's looking pretty good as well. Here's tenor 1 on one page, not too bad. Tenor 2, all right. And there we are at bari sax. So already we've made some really great impact, and we've gotten the part a lot more readable, and we've taken away that orphan measure and page. One other thing I look at pretty frequently when I'm trying to make some real changes to a part in a hurry is, again, under that layout options, under the library menu, I can go under the note spacing option, and I can turn that down a little bit. This can save me a lot of white space on the page and can help the music spread out a little bit. I find that the default of 4 in Dorico can be a little bit big. And so if you'll see in that menu, the default spacing for a crotchet or quarter note, it's normally at 4. And by comparison, if I put that back, you'll see everything looks pretty wide, and it is very legible, but it also kind of makes it look a little bit stretched because of the rastral size. And I feel like it flows a little better, and it made a little bit more room for my 16th notes so they flow a little bit better as well. And again, as I scroll through the parts, because I did that to all the parts at once, you can see everything looks pretty darn nice, and I've created parts that'll take far less pages to print. Now, things like my vocal part, I'm going to have to do a little bit differently. Now, remember, layout options are done individually. So here on this one, I'm going to have to go ahead and raise my inner system gap because of the lyrics to make a little bit more room. And you can see now everything is looking a little bit better, but I still have quite a bit of crushing down going. Now, one thing is you can see it's displaying the chord symbols, which is causing a lot of the conflicts. So I might choose to hide the chord symbols in certain places so that I could have multi-measure rests and other things. But in this case, I really want the vocalist to see those. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to raise that gap some more to make a little bit more room for the music. Now you can see all my collisions are gone, and the vocal part is really only 2 pages, which isn't bad. The guitar part, piano part, bass part, because of the chord symbols, they'll probably need this same treatment. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight those 3, and I'm going to change the gap there up to 10 and see if that gets everything looking a little bit better. Now, because these parts like this have nothing but slashes, I might choose to put a set number of bars per line. So if I was to go under the layout options, go to staves and systems, and then go to my casting off for these 3 parts, guitar, piano, and bass, I could go ahead and put 4 measures per line to make it so that everything plays out phrase-wise nicely. Now, you'll notice that because of this pickup bar, I am going to have to move bar 5 up to that first line so that now all the phrases line up. But you can see this makes a really clean-looking part for the rhythm section, and I just had this second orphan bar hanging off there that I can easily just add to the previous page, and now everything is looking pretty darn good. Going on to the piano part, same thing. I want to move up this measure onto the first line, and everything is looking pretty nice, but I could decide whether or not I want to condense this part and take away that casting off feature. It's very readable, but it is 4 pages. So I'm going to go ahead and test that, and I'm going to turn off the casting off. And you can see that got me almost onto 3 pages, which is pretty darn helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn up my inner system gap just a little bit more on this piano part. And I'm going to see where I'm at. And now I have a really nicely spaced 3-page part. Pretty good for the piano player. The bass part, once I move this orphan measure up, and then I go ahead and I move this one up, I have 2 pages, everything's looking really legible and really readable, so I'm pretty content with this. So there's a quick way of getting yourself from having pretty messy parts all the way to nicely printable, readable parts in about 5 minutes. Again, the secret is going under the library and going to the layout options. It's selecting all your parts at once. It's by setting a reasonable rastral size, somewhere between about 0.055 and about 0.064, I find is really good for reading for a part. It's about lowering your note spacing down to typically about 3.5. I find that to be a really good number for readability for most music. I also go down to the vertical spacing, and I'm looking for the optimal number. Again, somewhere between 8 to 10 typically works for standard parts and will get you much, much closer. And that way you don't have to sit there fiddling with every single part at once. Thanks again so much for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps others find this. I get lots of great comments. And please give me comments. If you have questions, leave them down there. You can also go to my website, larsenjazz.com, if you'd like to schedule a Dorico lesson to maybe get a little more advanced and get farther into the weeds on some of these topics. If you're looking for more regular help, you can go to my Patreon page where you can become a subscriber. And if you do that, you actually get some free Dorico lesson time every single month as a thank you for being a member, as well as I'm putting up more and more content like Dorico templates and other things that you can purchase. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.